and her name is Dionne Maxwell. Can we welcome Dionne to the stage, please, to Set the Trend podcast? Hi, Dionne.
Hello.
How
Welcome.
are you? You all right?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. One of the things that I want to ask you, in fact, let me talk about what you've done first, and then I'm going to ask you about that. You're a director of a cross-industry professional network called the Beam Group, and you specialize in the application of Black, Asian, and minority ethnic professionals for events, workshops, training, and so much more. In your title, Diversity and Belonging Specialist, what does belonging actually mean?
So my actual job title that I'm paid a salary for is Head of Diversity, Belonging and Talent. Mm-hmm. So belonging, essentially, I replaced inclusion. So normally you have diversity and inclusion. So when I started, I just replaced inclusion and made it belonging, because inclusion is kind of like you bring people into the room, so they're sitting there, so they're almost included in the conversation, but they're not really given the opportunity to add to the conversation. They're not really given the potential to be able to make changes to a system, to make changes to a process. So allowing someone to feel like they belong is about actually giving them the tools to actually make changes, to make choices, and not just be tokenistic in what you're doing, particularly around diversity and inclusion.
Okay, so for you, how long have you worked within that field?
So I started my diversity and inclusion journey really when I worked at Hearst magazines. So most people probably won't know Hearst. So Hearst is a publisher. But you'll know the magazines that they produce. So it will be Harper's Bazaar, Elle, Cosmo, Esquire.
The high-end luxury magazines then.
Yeah, but I don't think Devil Wears Prada. Like, people just go to work, say where like,
right, okay.
Dressing up in Gucci heels or nothing like that. They just look normal. But I worked there for 3 years. So my role there was diversity and belonging lead. So it was really around making sure that content was inclusive, making sure that the people that were producing the content were also from a diverse background, because essentially every stereotype that you can think of when it comes to magazines means it's not that inclusive. So while some of the content may be that, you know, they might do something around Black History Month, or they might do something for LGBTQ History Month or Women's History Month, etc. The people producing it were actually tended to be the same type of people, had the same socioeconomic background, would have the same same university kind of access to university, maybe from middle class, etc. So the business wasn't as diverse as it could be, but then it looked like they were being diverse because the content was.
So how would you influence them then to kind of make that diversity be shared amongst the company?
You basically bad them up. So when I started at Hearst, I come from a public sector background. So I worked at various different local authorities. So Haringey, Islington, Camden, Tower Hamlets, etc. And working there, I was never the only Black person. I was never the only person who lived in Tottenham. So I live in Tottenham. I was never the only. My teams were always diverse. Management was always diverse. I'm not saying it was diverse all the way through. So there was still a glass ceiling in public sector. But then when I left and went to Hearst, it was like, oh, okay. Billy knows it. Literally, I'm the only Black person in the whole team, and I was in a team of 30 at first. And then after a while, it was a bit like, no, this can't run, because you're trying to bust two joke. Nobody understands what you're saying.
Right.
Or stereotype you and put you into some box. So I remember someone asking me a question about. So when I first started at Hearst, I started as a show director. So it was about doing large scale events and festivals. So somebody asked me, said, you know, we really need somewhere that we can do an outdoor festival, quite high end, but not somewhere like Finsbury Park. I understood the question, so you didn't need to over explain it. And number two, why do you assume I wouldn't be able to find that? Like, I am from London. I understand London.
Yeah.
So it's about breaking down stereotypes, but it's about also having honest conversations. Hi, Emma. It's about having honest conversations with the business around what diversity looks like, how diversity adds to the culture of the company and also to the content. So you need to think about who you're speaking to. So if your CEOs or your managing directors, etc., are thinking in terms of money, they're thinking in terms of commerciality, you need to then be able to speak to them in a language that they understand and basically show stats and data that show that businesses that are more culturally diverse are more likely, like 33% more likely, to be more financially profitable than businesses that are not. If you're thinking in terms of gender, businesses that have women as part of the board, again, are I can't remember the number off the top of my head, but they are more likely to be more financially profitable than businesses that don't, because there's diversity of thought, there's diversity of products, there's diversity of who you're reaching out to and how you're able to speak to new audiences. So it depends who you're speaking to and how you kind of push that diversity agenda and the way that you speak to them.
Did you find that more difficult because you was Black and a woman? Or did you find it difficult anyway being a woman?
I don't think, okay, so controversial. I'm not really into feminism. Like, I don't really buy into it, because if I was to ever choose between my race and my gender, I will pick my race. If I walk into a room, people will see that I am Black before that they see I'm a woman. So the niceties, I guess, that come with gender stereotypes, so like chivalry and all that kind of stuff, that would go out the window for me, because actually they will just see me as Black first. Mm-hmm. So the intersectionality of feminism doesn't quite sit right with me, although I do champion women. I do think women are great, etc. But it isn't just about my gender. It's the first barrier for me personally, will be the fact that I'm Black. The second barrier for me will then be that I'm a woman. So trying to change cultural diversity stereotypes is always a number one priority for me. Mm-hmm. And then looking at how that then is permeated into gender stereotypes. So for example, when I speak with my hands. I'm quite passionate. I use normal words, like I use words that you find on road, etc. Like, so I'm constantly myself. I don't try and fit myself to adapt to somebody else's definition of profession.
Yeah, there's a word for that, isn't there? Where you use a particular type of language or behaviour in a corporate environment, as opposed to being on the street.
And road language.
No, there's a particular word for it. I've forgotten what it is, but yeah, okay. All right.
So in your role, Dionne, are you on the senior executive board? Yeah. You are? And how many people, if you don't mind me asking, are on your board that are one a woman and two Black?
So there's probably more women. I mean, Black's just me, it's me one. But the company that I work for now, so I don't work for Hearst anymore, but the company that I work for now is a growing media brand. So it's a startup. So there's only like 120 people that work there anyway. So it's the reason that I'm there is to make sure that as the business grows, we're able to attract and retain people from various different backgrounds, not just culturally, but from different socioeconomic backgrounds.
So how do you know in tech as well, talking about women in tech as well, it seems to be a big problem for not only Black diversity in tech, especially places like San Francisco, Silicon Valley, or our own Silicon Valley and Old Street. There seems to be a very, very huge lack of Black women at the forefront of tech companies. Is that something that you're currently trying to address in your company itself?
Not so much. So our company is a media publisher. So the thing we're trying to address essentially is content and making sure that our content is inclusive. So we're not only doing things around International Women's Day or Black History Month. So that's the only time you see Black people on the screen is when it's Black History Month, or when it's LGBTQ History Month. That's the only time we talk about same-sex marriage, etc. It's more about how you're making content inclusive throughout the year, and it's a consistent. And then also that a Black person's narrative isn't the fact that they're Black. So I fall in love. I wear clothes. I wear earrings. I wear makeup. Look, I got pretty nails. I can talk about loads of different things other than just being Black.
Are you happy with the increased content of Black people in TV commercials?
I think it's interesting. I do. I think it's great to see more representation, But I think that people need to be realistic about representation in the sense that code switching, yes, it was called code.
That's it, code switching. That's it. Yes.
When you're basically playing the game. I think it's great to see more representation. I think that the thing that makes me a little bit sad is when people react badly to it. So like the Sainsbury's advert, where the family, it was like literally just a family having Christmas dinner and they had gravy. And the backlash that Sainsbury's got, where people were saying, I can't relate to this. Well, you can't relate to people eating gravy. Could you relate? Who remembers the Smash advert?
Yeah.
It was aliens. It was little puppet aliens. I'm sure nobody wrote to them and said, I can't relate to this. Why are you showing me?
And more recently, the Argos advert. As soon as they switched the Argos advert to a black family, showing a black family, because their previous advertising campaign was also about some blue aliens. So, it is really sad what's going on with Middle England.
Dionne, how do you then measure? Because one of the biggest things that you've got to do as a company, if you're trying to get the content to be more diverse, you're trying to make your workforce understand that. How do you keep getting that message to your workforce from the bottom, from the cleaners right up about diversity and inclusion in your?
So you start with the people. So because my job is diversity, belonging, and talent, that's about who you recruit into the business. So it's about making sure that you have fair and inclusive systems. So I'm not a believer in equality. That's going to sound bad, but essentially, I think equality is a blue uniform. Like it's not real. Equality assumes that everybody has the same level of understanding, the same capacity, the same support, the same abilities. But it's not true. So I believe more in an equitable state. So most people may have heard of like BAME specific recruitment programs or programs to get more Black and Asian people into management positions. And that's because actually the systemic processes that tend to be in recruitment or that tend to be in business exclude people that don't have a certain kind of support structure, that didn't go to university, that don't have parents that are able to network for them and get them into businesses. So you end up having programs or systems in place to support underrepresented groups, which is why I don't believe in equality. I believe in equity. Everybody is not the same. Everybody is different. You wouldn't judge a fish on its ability to fly. So why would you treat people as if everybody is exactly the same? It doesn't make no sense.
Code switching.
Dionne, thank you for coming on board. I mean, in that short space of time, I've just learned
a lot.
No, it's not learn, it's understand, because it's the way that you talk it, the way that you put it over so people can understand. And that's one way of moving your business and moving your workforce as well, whether it's her department or anybody else's department. I would love to be in a meeting that you was in, Dionne. I really would. I think you're absolutely great.
I can imagine being in there, trying to get Oliver Skeet in Horse and Hound magazine.
Dionne, don't be a stranger. We'd like to call you back every now and again if that's possible. Before you go, I know you don't believe much in International Women's Week. You believe more in
equitable diversity.
Diversity. So what soul slow jam tune would you be playing on Monday?
Slow jam tune on Monday?
Yeah, on Monday.
Do you know what? Today, I swear down, I was listening to Donnell Jones' Where I Want to Be, and it was resonating with just in terms of, because I feel like with COVID, with transition, it's about you really understanding yourself, what your purpose is, how you're doing, how you relate to people, etc. And I feel like Where I Want to Be right now is one of my songs. But then also, I don't know how you say her name properly, but is it Snow Allegra?
Yeah.
Just anything.
Situationship.
Anything. I love it.
You've been Shazamming again, Reggie.
Shazamming? I've been playing Snow Allegra before you even knew Snow Allegra was, mate.
Oh, shots fired. Thank you for coming on to the program. Dionne, it's been fantastic having you. It's been fantastic hearing you speak. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers, Dionne.
Thank you.
Lovely. Hey. Dionne, boy, don't mess with Dionne.